Hey everyone. It occurs to me that a lot of people do not know the original stories to fairy tale. I don't know why people don't know that, but it's kind of disturbing, especially since I grew up with them. Well, we grew up with the Disney versions, but I was not taught those first. I was actually taught the Grimm's version of fairy tale stories. And it occurs to me that a lot of people don't know the Grimm's stories. They don't know the original works, and some people get different versions of that. And not entirely. Someone suggested that. Someone suggested that I read them. I don't know why. Um, a lot of these stories are not suitable for children. Just gonna go ahead and throw that out there. And yeah, if you're not up for any of that, it's probably best you go elsewhere. Now, there are um, a lot of their stories. Um, some of them are different than others. It's there are, if I remember correctly, two versions of the Grimm stories. Because I've read one way before, Rapunzel. I've read it two different ways. Um, in either way, it was still pretty screwed up. And I'm not a very good public reader. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that out there. I suck at being able to read anything really, and because my dyslexia kicks in a lot, it's gonna be a process. But anyway, the first one I'll read is Cinderella. Now there may be words in here that I do not recognize. Heads up on that too. Okay. The wife of a rich man fell sick, and as she felt that her end was drawing near, she called her only daughter to her bedside and said, Dear child, be good and pious, and then the good God will always protect thee, and I will look down on thee from heaven and be near thee." Thereupon she closed her eyes and departed. Every day the maiden went out to her mother's grave and wept, and she remained pious and good. When winter came, the snow spread a white sheet over the grave, and when the spring sun had drawn it off again, a man ta- the man had taken another wife. The woman had brought two daughters into the house with her, who were beautiful and fair-faced, but vile and black of heart. Now began a bad time for the poor stepchild. Oh God. Okay. Let me do that again. Oh, I'm gonna get dizzy. This is gonna happen. Now began a bad time for the poor stepchild. "Is this stupid goose to sit in the parlor with us?" they said. "He who wants to eat bread must earn it. Out with the kitchen wench." They took her pretty clothes away from her, put an old gray bedgown on her, and gave her wooden shoes. "Just look at the proud princess, how decked out she is," they cried and laughed, and led her into the kitchen. There she had to do hard work from morning till night, get up before daybreak, carry water, light fires, cook and wash. Besides this, the sisters did her every imaginable injury. They mocked her and emptied her peas. Yeah, don't ask me, that's what it says. Emptied her peas and lentils into the ashes, so that she was forced to sit and pick them out again. In the evening, when she had worked till she was weary, she had no bed to go to, but had to sleep by the fireside in the ashes. They never mentioned why the dad wasn't there. They didn't even say he left. Anyway, and as on that account she always looked dusty and dirty. I lost my place. Dusty and dirty, they called her Cinderella. It happened that her father was once going. You would think it would say once again. It happened that her father was once going to the fair, and he asked his two stepdaughters what he should bring back for them. "Beautiful dresses," said one. "Pearls and jewels," said the second. "And thou, Cinderella," he said, "what shalt what wilt thou have?" Okay, I don't like the way the father speaks at all. "Father, break off for me the first branch which knocks against your hat on your way home." So he brought beautiful dresses, pearls, and jewels for the two stepdaughters, and on his way home, as he was riding through the green thicket, a hazel twig brushed against him and knocked off his hat. Then he broke off the branch and took it with him. When he reached home, he gave his stepdaughters the things they asked for, and which they had asked for. And to Cinderella he gave the branch from the hazel bush. Cinderella thanked him, went to her mother's grave, on and planted the branch on it, and wept so much that the tears fell down on it and watered it. It grew, it however, and became a handsome tree. Does that make sense to y'all? Because that did not make sense to me. Anyway, became a handsome tree. Thrice a day Cinderella under went and sat beneath it and wept and prayed, and a little white bird always came I'm not gonna say that, came to the tree, and if Cinderella expressed a wish, the bird threw down to her what she had wished for. Give me a minute. Should have done this before I started reading. I'm stupid. Ooh, that tastes good. I'm not supposed to use chopstick. I can't help it. It's Skittles. I have Skittles lip glosses. Oh my god. I don't like the mango too much, but all the other ones are my absolute favorites. So I used the mango one first, but I got bored of that, so I switched it out for a little bit. Hey, anyway. Okay. It happened, however, that the king appointed a festival which was to last 3 days, and to which all beautiful young girls in the country were invited. In order in order that his son might choose himself a bride. When the two stepsisters heard that they were to appear among the number, they were delighted, called Cinderella, and said, "Comb our hair for us, brush our shoes, and fasten our buckles, for we are going to the festival at the king's palace." Cinderella obeyed, but wept, because she too would have liked to go with them to the dance and begged her stepmother to allow her to do so. Okay, I'm gonna stop there because if any of you noticed that the dad's obviously home, but he's not doing squat about any of this treatment towards his daughter. He obviously came home, he gave the branches, the dresses, the jewels, and then they just wipe him from the story. Either kill him or say he's gone. But he's still obviously there. So why isn't he doing anything about this treatment? Anyway, uh, would have liked to go with them to the dance and begged her stepmother to allow her to do so. "Thou go, Cinderella," she said. "Thou art thou art dusty and dirty, and whilst and I can't even say that. And wood it's wood st. I can't I can't go to the festival. Thou hast no clothes and no shoes, and yet wouldst, is that how you would say that? Wouldst? Englishman. Dance. As, however, Cinderella went on asking the stepmother, at last went on asking, the stepmother at last said, I have emptied a dish of lentils into the ashes for thee. If thou hast picked them up, hast picked them out again in 2 hours, thou shalt go with us. The maiden went through the back door into the garden and called, Ye tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds beneath the sky, come and help me pick the good into the pot, the bad into the crop. Then 2 white pigeons came in by the kitchen window, and afterwards the turtle doves, and at last all the birds beneath the sky came whirring and crowding in, and alight amongst the ashes. And the pigeons nodded with their heads and began to pick, 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 pick. And the rest began to also pick, 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 pick. Yes, there's 4 of them. Twice. You get used to it. And gathered all the good grains into the dish. Hardly hardly had 1 hour passed before they had finished, and all flew out again. Then the girl took the dish to her stepmother and was glad, and believed that now she would be allowed to go with them to the festival. The stepmother said, No, Cinderella, thou hast no clothes, and thou canst 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 not cannot dress, cannot dance. There we go. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's horrible. Thou would only be laughed at. And as Cinderella wept at this, the stepmother said, If thou can pick two dishes of lentils out of the ashes for me in 1 hour, thou shalt go with us. And she thought to herself, she that she most certainly cannot do. When the stepmother had emptied the 2 dishes of lentils among the ashes, the maiden went through the back door into the garden and cried, You tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds under heaven, come help me pick the good in the pot, the bad in the crop. Then 2 white pigeons came in by the kitchen window, and afterwards the turtle doves. And at length all birds beneath the sky came whirring and crowding in, and alight amongst the ashes. And the doves nodded with their heads and began to pick, 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 pick. And the others also began to pick, 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 and gather all the good seeds into the dishes. And before half an hour was over, they had already finished, and all flew out again. Then the maiden carried the dishes to the stepmother, and was delighted, and believed she might now go with them to the festival. But the stepmother said, All this will not help thee. Thou goest I cannot deal with this English. Thou goest not with us, for thou hast no clothes. Hast. Thou hast no clothes, and canst not dance. Yes, canst, instead of cannot dance. Why do they do that? Did they all have a never mind. We should be ashamed of thee. On this she turned her back on Cinderella and hurried away with her two proud daughters. As no one was now at home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree and cried, "Shiver and quiver, little tree, silver and gold throw down over me." Then the bird threw a gold and silver dress down to her. Yes, gold and silver, it was not blue. And slippers embroidered with silk and silver. She put on the dress with all speed and went to the festival. Her stepsisters and stepmothers, however, did not know her, and thought she must be a foreign princess, for she looked so beautiful in the golden dress. They never once thought of Cinderella, and believed that she was sitting at home in the dirt, picking lentils out of the ashes. The prince went to meet her, took her by the hand, and danced with her. He would dance with no other maiden, and never left loose of her hand. And if anyone else came to invite her, he said, "This is my partner." And not. She danced till it was evening, and then she wanted to go home. But the king's son said, "I will go with thee bear thee and bear thee company," for he wished to see whom the beautiful maiden belonged. She escaped from him, however, and sprang into the pigeon house. The king's son waited until her father came, and then he told him that the stranger maiden had leapt into the pigeon house. The old man thought, "Can it be Cinderella?" And they had to bring him an axe and pickaxe, yeah, and a pickaxe that he might hew the mantelpiece. What? That he may hew the pigeon house to pieces. There we go. I skipped a whole thing. But no one was inside it. And when they got home, Cinderella lay in her dirty clothes among the ashes, and a dim little oil lamp was burning with the mantelpiece. For Cinderella had jumped quickly down from the back of the pigeon house and ran into the little hazel tree, and there she had taken off her beautiful clothes and laid them on the grave, and the bird had taken them away again. And when she had placed herself in the kitchen amongst the ashes in her grey gown, the next day when the festival began afresh, her parents and her stepsisters had gone once more. Cinderella went to the hazel tree. See, he was home this entire time. Apparently, he did not love his Cinderella as much as everyone claimed. See, in every frickin' story that you read of Cinderella, either her father's dead as well, or he's gone on a trip and dies. They always tend to kill him off or leave him gone. Well, leave him away. But here in the original story, he's here and does absolutely nothing. You would think he would protect her, being alive and all, and being in the house. His daughter's obviously sleeping in ashes. He's done nothing. He's seen it himself. has cuts and bruises all over her from her stepsisters. Stepmother won't let her go to the ball, and father's just what, sitting there drinking tea? And I'm an idiot. Oh. Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Shiver and quiver, my little tree, silver and gold throw down over me." Then the little bird threw down a much more beautiful dress than on the preceding day. And Cinderella and when Cinderella appeared at the festival in this dress, everyone was astonished at her beauty. The king's son had waited until she came and instantly took her by the hand and danced with no one but her. When others came to invite her, he said, "She is my partner." When evening came, she wished to leave, and the king's son followed her and wanted to see into which house she went. But she sprang away from him into the garden behind the house. Therein stood a beautiful tall tree in which hung the most magnificent pears. She climbed so nimbly between the branches like a squirrel, and the king's son did not know where she was gone. Sure, that's English. He waited until her father came and said to him, "The stranger maiden has escaped from me, and I believe she has climbed up the pear tree." The father thought, "Can it be Cinderella?" and had an axe brought and cut down the tree, but no one was on it. And when they got into the kitchen, Cinderella lay there amongst the ashes as usual, for she had jumped down the other side of the tree and had taken the beautiful dress to the bird on the little hazel tree and put her gray gown on. On the third day, when the parents and the sisters had gone away, Cinderella went out once more to her mother's grave and said to the little tree, "Shiver and quiver, my little tree, silver and gold throw down over me." And now the bird threw down to her a dress which was more splendid and magnificent than any she had yet. Give me a minute. And now the bird threw down to her a dress which was more splendid and magnificent than any she had yet had. And the slippers were golden. And when she went to the festival in the dress, no one knew how to speak for astonishment. The king's son danced with only her, and if anyone invited her to dance, he said, "She is my partner." When evening came, Cinderella wished to leave, and the king's son was anxious to go with her, but she escaped from him so quickly that he could not follow her. The king's son had, however, used a stratagem. I don't know what it is about that word. I love it. Stratagem. Oh god, I lost my place. I looked away. Oh, there we are. And had caused the whole staircase to be smeared with pitch. And there, when she ran down, had the maiden's left slipper remained sticking. Now, this pitch is kind of, from what I've seen, I haven't looked it up at all because, well, I'm freaking lazy as hell. Um, is like this tar syrup type stuff. It's really sticky. You can see it into the woods. They do the same there with Pitch on the stairs, and her left shoe gets stuck. Yeah, they used her left shoe in that one, I believe. They tried to keep it, some of the reworkings of the fairy tales tried to keep it original, but you'll see here soon enough that they didn't do well enough. The king's son picked it up, and it was small and dainty, and all golden. Next morning he went with it to the father and said to him, "No one shall be my wife she whose foot but she who no one shall be my wife but she whose foot this golden slipper fits." Then were the two sisters glad, for they had pretty feet. The eldest went with the shoe into her room and wanted to try it on, and the mother stood by, but she could not get her big toe into it, and the shoe was too small for her. Then her mother gave her a knife and said, "Cut the toe off. When thou art queen, thou wilt have no need to go on foot." The maiden cut off the toe, forced the foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out with the king's son. You have to admit they've got great commitment to this, because if I had my toe cut off, I would be kicking and screaming. There is no way I could swallow all that. I would not go, "I'm perfectly fine." I would not be able to do that. Then took then he took her on a horse as his bride and rode away with her. They were, however, obliged to pass the grave. Obligated. I think it says obliged. It's all mixed up to me. Um, to pass the grave, and there on the hazel tree sat the two pigeons and cried, "Turn and peep, turn and peep. There's blood within the shoe is too small for her. The true bride wait, the true bride waits for you." Then he looked at her foot and saw how the blood was streaming from it. Oh my god, that's a lot of blood. Ugh. He turned his horse round and took the false bride home again, and and she said and she said was not and said she was not the true one, and that the other sister was to put the shoe on. Then this one went into her chamber and got her toes safely into the shoe, but her heel was too large. So her mother gave her a knife and said, "Cut a bit off thy heel. When thou art queen, thou wilt have no more need to go on foot." The maiden cut off her heel, forced her foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to to the king's son. He took her on his horse as his bride and rode away with her. But when they passed the hazel tree, the two pigeons sat on it and cried, "Turn and peep, turn and peep. There's blood within this shoe. The shoe is too small for her. The true bride waits for you." He looked down at her foot and saw how the blood was running out of her shoe, and had and it had stained her white stocking. Then he turned his horse and took the false bride home again. "This also is not the right one," he said. "Have you no other daughter?" "No," said the man. "There is there is uh no," said the man. There is still a little stunted kitchen wench which my late wife left behind her, but she cannot possibly be the bride." So obviously the father does not care. The king's son said he was to send her up to him, but the mother answered, "Oh no, she is much too dirty. She cannot show herself." He absolutely insisted on it, and Cinderella had to be called. She first washed her hands and face clean, and then went and bowed down before the king's son, who gave her the golden shoe. She seated herself on a stool, drew her foot out of the heavy wooden shoe, and put it into the slipper, which fitted like a glove. Mm, I'm trying so hard not to. Oh. And when she rose up and the king's son looked at her face, he recognized the beautiful maiden who had danced with him and cried, "That is the true bride." And the stepmother and two stepsisters were terrified and became pale with rage. He, however, took Cinderella on his horse and rode away with her. As they passed the hazel tree, the two white doves cried, "Turn and peep, turn and beat and peep. No blood is in the shoe. The shoe is not too small for her. The true bride rides with you." And when they had cried that, the two came flying down and placed themselves on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right and the other on the left, and remained sitting there. When the wedding with the king's son had to be celebrated, the two false sisters and came and wanted to get in favor with Cinderella to share her good fortune. This part gets a little. When the betrothed couple went to the church, the elder was at the right side and the younger on the left. The pigeons pecked out an eye of each of them. Afterwards, as they came back, the elder was on the left and the younger was on the right, and the pigeons pecked out the other eye of each. And thus, for their wickedness and falsehood, they were punished with blindness as long as they lived. Now, this was published in 1884. I don't understand why the movie is depicted as the father being really loving and caring towards his daughter, yet the original story, he obviously does not care. Like, I'm sorry, was he that terrified of his wife? They never mention the names or anything like that. But I always wondered if they did a movie closely resembling the Grimm stories, there'd be a few of them they could not do. Um, some have abuse in them, some have rape in them, some have all sorts of things in them that, well, just should not be said online to begin with. Um, Although I don't mind them, as I've said at the beginning of this, I grew up on these stories and I grew up with Disney movies and I liked to critique them. I like to pretend that I was a movie critic or something, be like, that's not how it goes. Like, me and my sister would sit there, my sister's, "Oh, I love this," and I'm just, no." And, of course, when the Saw movies came out, those became my favorites. And then, of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and yeah, gotta love how stupid people are in movies. It's like all common sense goes out the window because they have to make the movie more interesting or longer, and it makes no sense to me. They could still get in the damn car, drive away, and then the bad guy just chases them because he's bored. It's what bad guys do. They're fucking bored, they're gonna do something. They're not just gonna sit there and wait. Like Jeepers Creepers, he didn't sit there and fucking wait. He went and got stuff done. It was just, why do the bad guys always just sit in one little hidey hole, wait for someone to disrupt them, and then kill them, but never touch anyone else unless they wander in too? Makes no goddamn sense. Now, I understand if that's the way you wanna do things, but at least fucking explain it that way. He does it to protect himself, he does it to protect a secret or something, just something, a reason why he won't leave this certain area. You know, it's not that hard to explain it. No one's gonna watch these anyway, but, let's see, we did Cinderella first. I'm happy with that. Um, so I'm gonna leave this here, and we come back. Mm, and what is tomorrow? Monday. Yeah, I will come back tomorrow and read another story. I think I wanna do Rapunzel. There's something I wanted to check because someone told me that in the original works, Rapunzel was actually evil, that the story may have actually been twisted in a certain way that people actually thought Rapunzel was a good guy. So I'm gonna read that one tomorrow because I really wanna check that out because I've read 2 different versions of Rapunzel. So I wanna see which one's which. Anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you have a beautiful morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever time of the day it is for you, and I will see you then. Bye.